Now, when I was asked to do the Gospel of John, I've always wondered how I could approach this particular Gospel and to help us understand its broad theme, its broad purpose. And I think the best way to look at it is to reflect on why John wrote this Gospel. Now, if you can take a grasp of the reason why or the purpose why he wrote this Gospel, and I think there's much that we could glimpse from this Gospel. Now, by way of introduction, I just want to mention a few points about the Gospel of John. Now, when you compare the Gospel of John, and you compare it with the other three Gospels that we have in our New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you probably immediately notice that the Gospel of John is unique in its way. And it's very distinctive. It is different from the other three Gospels. And apart from the incident where Jesus feed the 5,000, and one of the signs that we're going to look at shortly, and the Passion narrative, you probably realize that there is not much similarity between the Gospel of John and the other three Gospels, Mark, Luke, and John. You turn to the first pages of the Gospel of John, you don't see the birth narrative. There's no Christmas story in the Gospel of John. There's no Sermon of the Mount that we are so familiar that is found in the Gospel of Matthew and also in the Gospel of Luke. There's no the Lord's Prayer. There's no teachings on parables. And we often imagine that one of the methods that Jesus used to teach the people back then was through parables. And when you come to the Gospel of John, there is no parable. There's nothing mentioned about the transfiguration of Jesus. Surprisingly, there's no institution of the Lord's Supper, even though John devoted a large chunk of his narrative towards the last moments that Jesus spent with the disciples. But there's nothing mentioned about the institution of the Lord's Supper. There's no exorcism in the Gospel of John. There is nothing to talk about to prepare the disciples for the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And nothing about the kingdom of God, if you look at it. So John is very unique in its way. Things that we are so familiar with when we talk about the life of Jesus, we don't seem to find it in the Gospel of John, especially those that we can read from the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So in many ways, John is unique. How is it unique? There is an extended prologue in John chapter 1, as we call it, where John begins by saying that Jesus is the Word that is made flesh. He's God made flesh. He's God that tabernacled with us, built his dwelling place among us, and he is God with us. And there is an extended conversation that John records for us, where Jesus had extended conversation with many individuals. And we're going to look at a couple of them this afternoon. There's a beautiful 7 I am saying, I'm the light of the world. I'm the resurrection and life. I'm the bread of life. And also, you have all these I am sayings by Jesus. And more importantly, for our purpose today, we're going to look at these 7 signs that Jesus performed. And in all these 7 signs, except for Jesus feeding the 5,000 and walking on water, the rest are unique in the Gospel of John. Right, we're going to look at that.